member of the euro. It is up to Greece and its government to act so that this can remain the case.
That's a spokesman for the government of Germany, the nation that holds more Greek debt than any other member of the Eurozone. Welcome back to The Heat. We're talking about Saturday's referendum in Greece and what happens next. Greece's place in the Eurozone, of course, remains precarious after 61% of Greeks voted to reject its creditors' conditions for more bailout funding. To continue our discussion on Greece's future, we are joined in the studio by Nicholas Larigakis. He is President and Chief Operating Officer of the American Hellenic Institute. Welcome back. And in Athens, James Galbraith is a professor at the University of Texas. And Constance Baroudos is a policy analyst and program director at the Washington policy firm, the Lexington Institute. Constance, let's pick up with you. Is Greece going to leave the euro?
No.
Why?
That's my prediction. The people do not want to leave the euro. They want to stay in the euro. The IMF report is game-changing for me. That's showing us that the IMF is stating that the debt is unsustainable. That needs to be a wake-up call to Greece's creditors, that you cannot just implement austere conditions on a country, and you need to instill growth. And I would also like to point out that this can lead into a humanitarian crisis as well as a security issue. Humanitarian, because if Greek banks run out of cash, people won't be able to purchase food or medical supplies. Security, because Admiral James Stavridis, the former NATO Allied Command, stated in an op-ed last week that Greece, remember, is a part of the European Union and is also a part of NATO. What does that mean? Those are two consensus-driven organizations. All members must decide to take action. So if things are not okay with Greece, it could potentially affect the decisions made on sanctions on Russia in the future in regards to Ukraine or the nuclear negotiations going on in Iran.
I'm glad you brought up all those different factors. Let's listen to the President of the European Parliament, because he's really stressing the humanitarian situation could get a lot worse. Let's have a quick listen.
I think we should tomorrow, and at latest on Tuesday for the Eurozone summit, discuss about a humanitarian aid program for Greece. Ordinary citizens, pensioners, sick people or children in the kindergarten should not pay a price for the dramatic situation in which the country and the government brought the country now.
Nick Larigakis, if Greece sticks in the euro, is there all this pain to come? Wouldn't they be better off with the drachma and be able to devalue and make its exports attractive to the world and the rest of Europe?
I don't think so right now in the immediate future, which could take anywhere from 3 to 5 to 10 years. Look at the problems that Argentina continues to face today. I don't think it's an option for Greece to leave the euro. And I think what we need to remind everyone is that there is no mechanism for either anyone leaving the euro unilaterally or for being kicked out of the euro by any other European Union member. So that's just not an option on the table.
Well, they said that about the European exchange rate mechanism, and I remember very quickly that the Brits jumped out of that. I just want to go to Athens. James, do you see any positive steps in perhaps abandoning the euro and going for the drachma, being able to devalue your currency, as others have done, Iceland, for example?
Well, it is true that Poland isn't in the euro and is not in any hurry to get into it, but Greece is in a different situation. It is in the euro. There is no exit door. There's no easy way out. Nobody wants to face the consequences of the disruption that would be involved in making that transition if it can possibly be avoided. So the real choice here is up to, again, to the European Central Bank. If it wants to preserve the euro as it is supposed to do, as it is within its charter to do, it has to simply start normalizing financial conditions here in Greece. And that is much more important and imminent and effective than some humanitarian aid program designed out of the European Parliament. It could be done on the ground, and Yanis Varoufakis is entirely right in saying they could open the banks in a day if they chose to. He didn't say they would, he said they could if they chose to. They can get a deal in 24 or 48 hours if they're prepared to come to the table in good faith.
Let me ask Constance about this. The euro was meant to make the southern economies of Europe more competitive, more like their northern neighbours. It was meant to bring everyone together in this single market where they trade with each other. This has not happened. Is it time to abandon the whole thing?
Look, I think that if Greece leaves the euro, it'll be because it's squeezed out. As James mentioned, there's no template for Greece to leave the euro. It's never happened. The EU never envisioned it happening. So it'll be squeezed out. If it does leave, it'll be because it's squeezed out by the ECB, not providing liquidity funds. Not to mention Greece's creditors are not happy with the current government. So it'll be a way to topple the government and potentially lead to a Grexit. But it'll be because it's forced out.
So, in other words, the creditors and Berlin would want Greece to leave potentially, and some have said this week's actions are because of that. Nick?
Yeah, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be something they want to go and test the waters on, because this is uncharted territory, and I'm a strong believer that this, without giving you the economic, behind it, that this will have potentially the beginning of the end for the euro as we know it. So I don't think necessarily they're going to ultimately get to that stage. They are really trying to squeeze this government with more concessions. I think it's more of this is not an economics. If it was economics, everyone knows there's 1,001 ways to be able to do this. Greece is only 2% of the European Union's GDP. So this is a political issue that the Germans, predominantly the Germans, are trying to make Greece as an example for any other countries coming down the road as to what they're going to go up against if they run this course as well. Again, this is strictly a political and it's not an economic issue, but behind all of this, there's humanitarianism, and right now, it's not a problem yet. But when I was there last week and speaking with hoteliers and others, there's a run on supermarkets. There's no more items on the shelves. Hotels only have maybe 2 more weeks of supplies. And we're talking about Greece's economy, 20% of it is its tourism. And right now, you're talking about Christmas season in Greece, where it makes up, the majority of its budget for a given year.
Yeah, and of course, pharmaceutical supplies are running low as well. Yes. James, would you like to pick up on that? That Greece may be forced out of the euro?
Yes, and if Greece had voted yes, and the whole movement of protest against austerity and the conditions would have folded up at that point, that would have had a very depressing effect on similar political movements all across Europe. But in fact, the Greeks voted no. They voted no in a resounding way. And that has got to inspire similar campaigns in Spain and Ireland and Portugal and other parts of the Eurozone, maybe in Italy and in France as well, perhaps. So we're going to see this problem is not going to go away. If Greece is now squeezed out of the euro, that will inflame the anger elsewhere even more. And I think the previous speaker was entirely correct in saying that it will be the beginning of the end for the European project, a massive act of institutional and political suicide committed by Europe's top leaders because of their blindness in the matter of this particular country.
James, the world is watching. I just want to play everyone this sound that we have from China's foreign ministry spokesman on this very issue.
At present, the Greece debt crisis is at a critical stage. For China, we hope the relevant negotiation between Greece and international creditors could achieve success as soon as possible. China is willing to see Greece to stay within the Eurozone. China has always said that China supports the process of European integration. We're happy to see a prosperous Europe, a united EU, and a strong euro. We also believe that the Eurozone is able to properly resolve the Europe debt issue and get through the current difficulties.
Constance, Baroudos, can you pick up on this wider implications of what's going on in Greece? It is a test for the Eurozone. We have elections coming up in Portugal and Spain. The world is watching. What's going to happen?
So I predicted that a deal will be reached, but that doesn't mean the European project isn't still pending. Because if Greece's creditors give into Greece, whether it's a better deal or a haircut, other countries may feel like, hey, maybe we can get a better deal as well if we elect extreme leftists or parties that are willing to take that stance and fight against creditors.
Where do you see that happening? Spain, Portugal?
Oh, definitely. Definitely the weakest right now.
We haven't touched on the strategic aspect of Greece, Nick, have we? No. You don't have to have that long a memory to understand that Greece, really in the centre of Europe, was nearly taken over by a communist insurgency after the Second World War. It was a key pivot zone in the Cold War. It matters a lot to Europe where Greece goes politically and economically, doesn't it? And the wider region.
It matters tremendously. And one of the sticking points in the last memorandum, if you will, a proposal, was to cut 400 million euros from Greece's defense budget, which would have been a disaster, and almost brought down the coalition of Mr. Tsipras just last week. And why is that important? Because Greece does have to spend a large portion of GDP because, unfortunately, it has issues in the neighborhood and predominantly with Turkey when every single day incursions take place into Greek sovereign territory by F-16 Turkish military jets, a NATO ally.
There's Libya, too.
But let me just add that the cost, and I just got this briefing at the Joint General Chiefs of Staff, it costs $10,000 an hour to operate a Greek F-16 to chase out their NATO members. The point is, Greece is in a very strategic area. It's the frontline state for the projection of Western interest and stability, for peace and stability in the southeastern Mediterranean. From Libya, all the way from the Libyan coast to the Albanian coast, is just one incredible flare-up of instability. And the countries of Greece, Cyprus, Israel, and the emerging relationship in this relationship of Egypt provide for this particular peace and stability. And therefore, the West, NATO specifically, needs to make sure that Greece can continue to play that role. And if they can't do it economically, then that becomes marginalized on the military side.
I just want to go to James quickly in Athens. You know, you have the Acropolis behind you. The Greeks invented direct democracy. They had some direct democracy in the last 48 hours. How important is Greece today to the European project?
Well, I think Greece is, in many ways, a linchpin of the European project, and it's a real test case as to whether that project has the flexibility and the common sense that will enable it to survive. Strategically, my view is Greece isn't going anywhere. It is aligned with the West. It is aligned with NATO. It is an ally of the United States. And that really gives the U.S. an interest in that's essentially very similar to that articulated by the Chinese foreign minister that we just heard, that it is very much in our interest to see this problem resolved, and resolved on terms that permit a revival of the Greek economy and an end to the hardship that's being inflicted on the Greek people. Right now, the left in Greece, like all of the Greece, is pro-American. It would be very good to reinforce that with really concrete pressure to get the deal done on favorable terms.
Greece at a crossroads.